Hey, I'm Jeff from the Rive team, and I want to talk to you about switching from using events to using data binding. You may have noticed on our docs that Rive Events are now considered deprecated. With data binding, we have many property types that weren't available with the legacy inputs and events, but they can be used in all the same ways. One of the properties most similar to events is the trigger property. So let's take a look at how to use triggers like events. Within the editor, there are several ways to fire events and listen to those events. So we're going to look at how you would fire events on transitions and states in the state machine with a listener action or even on a timeline, and how you would listen to those events in nested components. We're going to do the same thing, but with triggers. So here's a button component that has a hover state and hold to confirm state. One of the first things we can do is look at the view model for this button. It's going to have a button down Boolean, a button hover Boolean, and those are being used for the transitions between these states. And it's got the confirmed trigger here. And I'm not using this yet, so let's add this. Previously, with events, you would be able to add these to transitions here. In this case, I don't have any events, but I do have a trigger, and that's going to show up as an option here. So now I can choose to add this trigger either on enter or on exit within this transition between these two states. You can see the trigger fire as soon as that transition begins. And this transition has no duration, but if I did add some duration, let's say 500 milliseconds, and I set this to on exit, this will fire after 500 milliseconds during that transition. The next way to add triggers is on the state itself, and it's very similar. You would add them either on enter or on exit. So this one will fire as soon as we enter this state. You can also add them to listeners. I can add a trigger fire to pointer down, for example. So here I would add a new view model change, and I would set confirmed, which is the name of my trigger, and it's in my button view model. So now when I play, mouse down, it's going to fire that trigger. And then the last way to add a trigger is to the timeline itself. And for this interaction, that is what I want to do. I want this trigger to fire when this bar is full and when this flash happens. And if I come to my view model and view the trigger, and I have several instances in this particular view model, but you'll see there's no diamond to add a key for these. So the way to add a trigger to a timeline is to use something called a property group. So I'll add a new property group to my stage. It doesn't have any properties yet, but I will add a new trigger and I'll give it a name. And what I want to do is data bind this to the trigger in my view model. So if I right click and data bind, I can choose the confirmed trigger. And I want to make sure to set this to target to source. That means that this trigger, this is the target, is going to control the source, which is the view model property. And you'll notice here with the property group, I do have the diamond and I can add a key for this. So now we'll see that as we get to this point, that trigger will fire. So that covers the ways to fire a trigger, just like you would for an event. Let's also look at how to listen for triggers. So I have a component artboard here that has 3 instances of this button, and they each have a different keyword, a different color. Of course, they each have the trigger instance happening as well. In the view model for this component, I have nested instances of my button view model attached to the 3 different instances that I set up. And then I'm going to place this component into this layout over here. I want to listen for triggers from these nested buttons, which are nested here and then here, and do something on this artboard when the trigger is fired. So I have one set up already. It works like this. When I hold and confirm, it will set the border color to match the highlight color from the button, as well as the text string here to match the text string in the button. So let's look at how that's set up. The view model for this artboard is called main view model. It does have a nested instance of menu bar, and menu bar has nested instances of the button view model. So all of these properties, including the trigger, are available through the menu bar and through the main view model. The main view model also has a screen color property and a screen title property. The color is bound to the border color, and the string is bound to a text element, which is currently empty. So my listener that I have set up here is for the dashboard button, and it's listening on the artboard. So when you select the artboard as your listener target, you get the options for the view model properties. I want to choose the confirm trigger, and I can choose here what the source is going to be. Since I have 3 different ones, I want to make sure that I'm setting it up for the particular button that I want to use. So when I use this drop down, I'll see these options, and I will choose the path that goes through the menu bar to the main instance, because that is this button in the middle. That's what I'm setting up. So that's what it's listening for, and now my actions are going to be view model changes. In my main view model, I want to change the screen color, that's the border color here, to match the color fill from, and I'm going to choose that same instance, menu bar main. And I'm also going to update the screen title to match the label from main. So now if I play this, my state machine is listening for the trigger fire from this component, and it will set the actions. And then this one will set the actions for this one. So let's set up the last one. One way to do that even easier if you're setting up multiples that are similar is to duplicate it. I'll call this one shop. And I'm just going to change the targets here. I want the same trigger, but from the shop instance. And I want to set the same parameters, but instead of the main instance, I want the shop instance. And now this one's going to work also. Since we're using data binding, these triggers and all the other properties within your view models are going to be able to be read and written at runtime. So you can listen for these trigger fires or any other value that you set, like your numbers, strings, booleans. It's all going to be available at runtime.